Hi everyone, I'm Dina with Mills Family Gardening. We live in North Texas, Zone 8A. Today is March 24th, and for us, it's a perfect time to plant tomato seedlings in the ground. When we plant our tomato seedlings, I make sure that daytime temperature stays above 50 degrees Fahrenheit most of the days, and then night temperatures would stay above 35 degrees Fahrenheit. But if I see that night temperatures stay in the 30s Fahrenheit several nights in a row, then I postpone the planting and make sure that night temperatures go a little higher and the weather warms up in general. I checked our weather for the upcoming week and it will stay above 50 degrees Fahrenheit for the next few days, so it is a safe time for us to plant our tomato seedlings. Our in-ground bed where we grow tomatoes is located in our garden area that gets at least 6 to 8 hours of sunlight daily. Tomatoes need a lot of sunlight to have thick, strong stems and produce well. Tomato plants don't do very well in a crowded area that has a lot of plants growing around them. For that reason, we picked this spot here that gets a lot of air circulation and also sunlight. Right here we have a lot of bachelor buttons, the flowers that came up on their own from last year's flowers, and actually we had a lot more of them here. I had to pull a lot of bachelor button plants from here because I want to open up the space so that the tomato plants would get plenty of air and sunlight. And yesterday I planted a lot of our tomato plants. You can see them here. They're not very visible in this mulch, but I did not plant a few of them in that spot, and that's what we're gonna do today. Tomatoes require healthy soil to grow well. Here in our backyard we have mostly clay soil, and we have worked on this in-ground bed by amending the soil. We added a lot of composted cow manure, a lot of kitchen scraps, and other organic matter like leaves into our soil. Tomato plants like slightly acidic soil with pH between 6.2 and 6.8, so it's worth testing your soil and see what pH your soil has. Also, we use organic granular fertilizer for our tomato plants on the day when we plant them, but also throughout the growing season we fertilize our plants regularly because tomatoes are heavy feeders, and for them to produce well and be strong they need a lot of nutrients, and we fertilize them throughout the growing season with a liquid fish fertilizer and more bloom throughout drip irrigation. Before you plant tomatoes outside, make sure to harden them off well, and just recently we made a video about how we harden off our seedlings. So to plant a tomato plant, I'm just going to remove this mulch out of the way, and I'm going to plant it right by this drip emitter that's here permanently. So I'm going to dig a hole slightly longer, not necessarily deeper, but longer, because I want to plant this tomato sideways. I'm going to lie down on the ground because you can see the tomato is relatively long. It has a long stem, and I would like to bury 2/3 of the stem in the ground. I'm going to get the tomato out of its container and lay down like that. I'm not even going to try to straighten up the tomato. It will straighten up on its own as it keeps growing. But before I plant it, this year I decided to try something new. I have collected these ground eggshells in this jar, and now I'm simply going to sprinkle all these ground eggshells like that. Tomatoes need extra calcium. I also am going to use this organic granular fertilizer. It got a little wet because we had a lot of rain lately, but I'm going to use it anyway. You can see that it got sticky in one clump, but it's okay. We'll mix it with the soil. And then also, I'll use a little bit of our homemade compost that we make in flower pots, and we also made a video about that. And I'm simply going to lay the plant down like that and lay the whole stem on the bottom and then cover it up with the soil. I can use a little more fertilizer if I need to. Just sprinkle it on top like that, mix it with the soil, and then cover the rest of the stem with the soil. When planting tomatoes, it's important to remove bottom leaves because they're not gonna contribute to the growth of the plant too much. So I'm going to remove all these 3 bottom leaves. That way the leaves will be positioned up higher, and when you water the tomato plant, then it won't be spraying on the leaves as much. And that brings us to the next point. When you water a tomato plant, make sure you water close to the ground so the water doesn't splash on the leaves, because all the soil-borne bacteria will get on the leaves and the tomato plant might get diseased. It's also very important to use mulch, to mulch all the area around tomatoes. That will help you protect your tomato plant from soil-borne diseases also. You can use any kind of mulch that you can find. Right here we have a used bedding from our guinea pigs. It works perfectly. This is aspen mulch. It protects the ground, the soil, from getting too dry, so it keeps the moisture in, and also protects tomato plants from getting splashed by the water and getting diseased. It's important to water tomatoes deeply and regularly. If you let the soil stay dry for a long period of time, then tomatoes will develop blossom end rot, because they won't be able to take up all the minerals and nutrients they need. And also tomato fruits might start cracking when you water inconsistently. And after planting, we usually tie our tomatoes with jute to our small trellis that we have here. We just tie it to the top of the wire, and then the other end goes around the tomato plant. And then as the tomato plant is growing, we usually just weave it around this jute, and it keeps growing like that. But there's all kinds of support you can use for tomatoes. It can be metal cages, it can be metal wires, it can be trellises, it can be string trellises, it can be wooden or metal stakes. Whatever you have on hand, you can use for your tomatoes. And that's how we plant our tomatoes. I hope this video will help you plant your tomatoes successfully. Thank you so much for watching this video, and have a great day.